While in New Orleans, we went on a walking tour around the city. Our group met in the main lobby of the Royal Sonesta to get started.
The thing about Bourbon Street is that it was for a long time the hub, the epitome of live music in New Orleans. And then around the 80s, 90s, it became more of just like commercialized. I don't know if anybody's mentioned this to y'all when I say down to French Street, when we use directions in the city of New Orleans, we are not ever using cardinal signs. North, south, east, and west, your guess is as good as mine where those are. We're upriver, downriver, riverside, and lakeside. And everyone uses directions that way because I'm sure that y'all have a map or y'all seen a map of New Orleans. We are at a 90-degree bend in the river. And so you're going like this, basically from Jackson Square.
All right, hello, my name is Ashley, this is Laura.
Hello.
And we are leading the Spotlight on New Orleans tour for Colette. If you're ever down here, come and check us out.
We love it. We'll show you a little bit about everything.
Homes and buildings just like what you see when you move around the quarter. At some point, they decided that they were going to make this whole area into a government area. And if as we make our way around, you'll see that the building, the bottom half is marble, the top half is concrete. We've done that way to save money. This is the Supreme Court building. It would originally have homed the Department of Agriculture, which is super important to Louisiana. The bottom half is going to be retail, and that the top half will perhaps be residential, but it might be all retail. The folks behind me this is our founder, Bienville. Now, Bienville and his brother, they came here, and his brother eventually died, and he ended up having to really take on New Orleans as his baby. He's pictured here with Native Americans and also with a friar, someone representing the Catholic religion. Something that Laura and I were talking about this yesterday is something that's different about Bienville as opposed to lots of other colonizers, is that he was really intentional about making friends with the people who were here already. He knew that the French who got here were not going to survive. So you guys have heard of Canal Street. Originally supposed to be a canal that went from the river to the lake, but we sometimes just don't finish things. So we just named it Canal Street and turned it into a road. Also, Rampart is another border of the French Quarter. Rampart being a wall, but then we just made it a street, named it Rampart because walls are hard to build. But you can see here, this is kind of like the height constriction of the French Quarter. As you cross Canal Street, that's the American side of the city. And when I say American side of the city, what I mean is the Louisiana Purchase happened in 1803. This was a neighborhood of pretty much exclusively French Creoles, French-speaking folks who were Catholic, and then we became American. They were not consulted about this. They were just all of a sudden American. First they were French, then they were Spanish, then they were French again, and then they were American. All of these hard-working, English-speaking Protestants moved into the city, and there was a lot of butting heads.
We then made our way up to the Mississippi Riverfront, which was beautiful.
This is the newest and biggest one that we have here. You'll notice the paddles. The Natchez is the only actual steamboat that's running in the city. I think there's only two on the entire river. One of them comes out of St. Louis. What's cool about the Natchez is that you can actually walk through the engine room. These are the tourist ones, but this is a big boat. They had originally built it for hosting parties and things like that, and I think it just runs a regular cruise. And a lot of times folks will come, and they'll say like, oh, should we do this, or is this like a really touristy thing? I mean, we took the riverboat for my birthday a couple of years ago. The original city would have been just the French Quarter, and it is laid out in blocks. To the Gulf of Mexico. Any other place downriver, you are taking a ferry to get across. About 100, 110 miles. If you take the river, about 40, 45 miles as the crow flies, you would say. So people are often surprised at how long it takes to get to open water if you're getting on a cruise ship or something here. We're looking across at Algiers Point. Algiers Point is another really cute neighborhood in the city, much like the Marigny is a great neighborhood. But that kind of divot out into the river that the sharp turn goes around, that is said to be the deepest point of the entire Mississippi River. It's about 200 feet deep right there.
Maybe get off and explore the other side a little bit. We adore doing that. That ferry is just a pedestrian ferry. Further downriver, as Ashley was saying, there's more ferries that take vehicles and everything. This one's just pedestrian.
So there's one, that's the ferry that's coming from the other side, that blue and white boat straight across. And this is hilarious. I've never seen jet skis on the river. And they fall in there.
If they're not the Coast Guard or something, it's highly illegal.
Yeah, they're definitely
Really?
illegal.
Oh yes, this is not recreational. If the water's, as Ashley was saying, how turbulent it is under that calm surface, it's very dangerous.
Literally millions of cubic tons moving by per second.
Yeah.
You can easily see why the early settlers decided to settle here along the Mississippi River. This is actually the highest part of New Orleans, and it is beautiful. Back in the 1700s, this was a huge slave trade area.
Yes, this is, New Orleans is a cute and quirky city, but this was a huge hub for the slave trade. One of the more scandalized parts of this. And but worth mentioning, as Laura said, we were a city that was, whenever the Haitian Revolution happened, our city doubled in size. And lots of those folks were free people of color, but the slave trade was still happening here. So that's another interesting thing. When I say Creole, that does also, it's everyone who was here. You had free people of color who were Creoles, white Creoles, and enslaved Creoles. We are going to make
You see streetcars all around the city because that's how people get around. We made our way up to a landing where we had a bird's eye view of the St. Louis Cathedral, one of the most notable landmarks in New Orleans. You could take carriage rides around Jackson Square and the city. This tree was absolutely gorgeous and several hundred years old. This round brass container is something they use to process sugarcane. These buildings line two sides of Jackson Square, and they were built in the 1850s. The lady who had them built made sure her initials were put into the wrought iron. These buildings are now owned by the city of New Orleans. If you ever get to New Orleans, one of the things you need to do is walk around Jackson Square. It's so beautiful. Jackson Square is the site of the Louisiana Purchase, and the focal point is the statue of Andrew Jackson. Few cities in the world are identified by a building such as the St. Louis Cathedral. We didn't record much inside the cathedral because there were people in there praying, and we didn't think it would be very respectful. So we just stood and tried to get an overall view of this beautiful cathedral. The Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis, King of France, is the oldest Catholic cathedral in continual use in the United States. They still hold Mass here 7 days a week. And look at the hand-painted ceiling. How gorgeous. This walking tour was such a nice way to see the city and hear the history.
But I just want to take you back real quick. It's World War II era, and there was a government ban on the manufacture of whiskey. That was not a moral, ethical, judgmenty thing. The government just said, hey, we've got a massive war going on. We need American grains for other reasons. You can't use it to make whiskey right now. Well, what happens when you tell people they can't have something? Yes. So massive rush on those on any supply of whiskey, which was unusual. We were a rum country until then, and New Orleans was the major port for bringing it in and distributing it. So we had tons of rum ready to go that nobody wanted. Pat O'Brien's dealt with the surplus by coming up with a brilliant plan, and this was the actual original Pat O'Brien. He invented a drink, and he said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give it away for free, right? Because it doesn't matter how much you want that whiskey drink. If the rum drink is free, you're gonna try it, right? And his drink was great. It was light rum, dark rum, and passion fruit. It was delicious. It became an instant sensation, and being the smart businessman that he was, he threw a price tag on that bad boy. It became their signature thing. To this day it is famous, but the drink they serve there is nothing like that anymore.
Our first night in New Orleans, we went with the group to Pat O'Brien's to try that famous hurricane drink. And there it is. They say it's nothing like it used to be. We loved the water and fire elements they had at Pat O'Brien's. If you would like to see more videos from New Orleans, click the playlist that just popped up on your screen.